My name is Harriet Yule. Now, before you think had a strange middle name, I must tell you it is my maiden name. I chose to keep my married name after I was married, which was not a usual trend for a woman of my time, but as you will soon see, I was not a usual woman. I was born in Kenosha on November 8, 1861 to Orson Sherman Head and Mary Jane Treadwell Head. I was the youngest of their 6 siblings. You've already met my father and my oldest sister Mary. In February of 1883, I married George A. Yule. He was a foreman at Bain Wagon Works. He too was also from Kenosha. His father, also named George, was an industrialist. My husband later became president of Badger Press Works. Just 10 months after we were married, I gave birth to our only child, William Yule. Thank heavens he wasn't born premature. That would have raised some eyebrows in town, not to mention my own family. In spite of the prestige of the Head family and the good standings of my father and my uncles in our community, we were not immune to scandal. I thought father was going to have an aneurysm when Mary announced she was going to marry a common freight clerk from Missouri. I doubt Vesuvius erupted with much more force than our father did. Those two, they just couldn't see that they were both exactly alike. They were both stubborn, pig-headed, and intimidated by no one. Poor father's confidence seemed shaken and even affected his health. I don't think he ever recovered from the shock of his oldest daughter standing up to him and defying his authority to be married. Well, George and I had been married for about 14 years, and we built a fine home on Durkee Avenue, which you know as 3rd Avenue. It was a colonial revival style designed by the Chicago architectural firm of Pond and Pond. The home's address today is 6300 3rd Avenue. In a very short time span, many prominent men at the top of the Bain Wagon Works organization died. Treasurer Charles Bain died in March of 1894, and his office was Mr. Frank Newell was chosen to that office. Just 7 years later, Mr. Newell died, and Frank Slauson took over for him. Mr. Slauson died 10 years later. It was then that the Yule family purchased the Bain and Newell interests in Bain Wagon Works. My husband became secretary-treasurer. His father, George, became president, and his brother, William, became vice president. It truly became a family business, and I was very involved in the operations of the business, which was unusual for a woman of my time. We also hired Mary's son Richard, who went on to invent a new type of wagon light fixture from brass. I enjoyed a role of prominence in the city. In 1905, I gave a speech entitled "The Town Beautiful." I called for cleaner streets, better architecture, increased landscaping, and more parks throughout the city. I was very pleased when my speech promoted a beautification movement in Kenosha. This movement prompted increased monuments, arches, and statues in public spaces, and much improved public architecture. One of the monuments that came as a result of this movement was the Lincoln statue in Library Park. It was paid for by Mr. Orla Calkins. Unfortunately, Mr. Calkins died a few days before the statue was dedicated on Memorial Day, May 31st, 1909. Today is the 106-year anniversary of the dedication of that statue. Soon, the drums of war began to sound, and many young Kenoshans marched off in uniform. Looking back, it's difficult to say which was a more devastating calamity for Kenoshans, seeing our young men march off to fight against the Germans in the war to end all wars, or seeing death all around us from the Spanish influenza pandemic. Schools were closed, churches were closed, bars were closed, even funerals were banned. Any gathering of people was too much of a risk for this deadly contagion. A person could awaken at 7 in the morning and just enjoyed spending our winters in California. Our only son, William, had moved out to Santa Barbara, California, and we enjoyed visiting William and his wife, Mary, and our 4 grandsons. They had a farm there in Santa Barbara. Yes, a farm in Santa Barbara. Remember, this is the early 1900s. California was still a large, open country with very few large cities. Both my nephew, Richard Wells, and his son, Georgie, you know him as Orson Wells, had a certain gift for storytelling. The world saw evidence of this gift, this trait, with the disastrous outcome of Georgie's War of the World radio drama. Anyway, this knack turned on me when they began to fabricate stories of eccentric behavior on my part. Richard claimed that I wore a riding suit at all times, and that I had a red wig I would wave at my friends, and that I supposedly enjoyed bathing in ginger ale, and that my chauffeur drove my automobile to the outskirts of Kenosha, dragging me by a rope as I sought to ward off excess weight. Well, in fact, I did like to run behind my auto in the morning. I could take a morning run. And I did enjoy an electric Turkish bath chamber in my house. You may have heard other rumors about my eccentricities in regards to my imbibing a bit. Well, my lady friends and I like to go out and have a good time, and if that meant my chauffeur driving us around to a few local establishments for a nip here and a shop there, well, we didn't see any harm in that. As Kenosians went on their morning commute, they seemed to get some kind of amusement out of watching us waving and hollering to them as we were being driven home by my chauffeur to sleep off the residual effects of the night's frivolities. And let me set the record straight about that little incident where the movers were in my bedroom. Well, when my dear George died in 1923, I decided to move out to California to be near our son William. Well, when the movers came to pack up everything in my bedroom, you would think that they had never seen a woman enjoying a morning cocktail before. So what if I was in my birthday suit? I mean, I was in my own bedroom after all, and all they had to do was go about their job packing up, and I wasn't going to interfere with them in the least. I guess they didn't see it that way because they promptly left my room. After I left, and this is what Georgie found very amusing, they was moving the magnificent campuses. After I moved out, our lovely home was purchased by Kenosha County, and it became the Kenosha Society. When the society moved out into the old water plant and became the Kenosha History Center, our home was occupied by Kenosha County attorneys. I believe today our home is now has been sold and is now a private residence. I just hope that those private residents have not been submitted to the same type of gossip and slander that I was exposed to. Although some would say that I was doing the exposing, if you know what I mean. As a little side note, we have noted that I do not have my own little private headstone here. Jean tells us that there is a burial certificate for Harriet. She did die in California, and it is our belief that her son stayed in California and did not feel a need for a headstone. She is buried here, but she does not have a private headstone. My husband here, my son, my mother and father-in-law, and their children. She is buried here somewhere, but without a headstone. And I'm sure my sister Mary is very tickled pink with that. That's why she lent me her shoes today. Thank you so much for coming and learning about the history of the Wells family. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.